So, welcome, Doreen. Good to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, these days when someone from the US and someone from Germany is on stage, we should talk about politics. Yeah? Should we talk about US politics first? Okay, good. Then maybe German politics. Maybe let's talk about something where we can collaborate across boundaries effectively. Maybe.
Okay, I like that idea.
makes more sense. Otherwise, also we don't have so much time. So glad to have you here. I've learned that in 2 days you are already 4 years with United now.
It's hard to believe, but it's true.
I remember when we met first time, you just joined. You came from the hospitality business.
I did.
So after such a long time in the hospitality business, what made you, or what was interesting to join finally the airline industry?
Yeah, as you imagine, I've been asked that question quite a bit after over 25 years at a lodging company. And it's really simple. We were in the middle of the pandemic, and Scott Kirby, the CEO of United, was speaking a lot about travel coming back. I watched the airline not force retire pilots or planes. They were betting on travel returning, and I believed it would return, and so I wanted to be a part of that. I was already fairly loyal to United. It's the only airline I flew when I could, so I understood the culture and what they stood for. But I think the airline industry and the hotel industry is similar, right? There's a lot of similarities. It's about taking care of people and taking care of employees that take care of those passengers, and so I did that 4 years ago, and I've loved every minute of it, and I imagine it'll be a few years more that I'll stick around.
Sounds good, but now you talk about some commonalities, but do you figure out some key differences between the airline industry and the hospitality industry? Of course, bats usually do not fly. Yeah?
Right. that is true. So I led my team at Marriott through the pandemic, and the interesting thing about hotels and air is you really had to get travelers to go to the hotel. You couldn't pick the hotel up and move it somewhere. Whereas, to your point about flying beds, whereas with the airline, you could fly between points where there was actually demand. And I know during the pandemic, the Latin America market was very strong for us. But I would say the biggest difference for those that are involved in business travel between hotels and airlines is most of the large hoteliers are large franchisor and management companies. So when I left Marriott, they had 8,500 hotels. Marriott didn't own any of them. So the decision-making process is very different in that the owner advisory council and the franchise advisory council, there was a lot more collaboration. Doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's very different. So I have to admit, I spent the first 30 days at United saying, okay, who else has to sign off on this? And my team would look at me and say, you. So it is a little bit faster. I have some team members in the audience that probably will disagree with me, but I think those are key differences. But the last thing I would say is, the biggest similarity was 75% of the clients, whether they were corporations or agency or tour operators, they were the same. And so I think that that made the transition in bringing those relationships along, made the transition a little bit more seamless.
The hotel industry, I mean, they had already worked on, let's say, direct connect interfaces in the past, where in the airline industry, everybody is talking about NDC since quite some times, many years.
And doesn't the N mean new?
And yeah, maybe it's in the meantime, it should be ODC, yeah, old distribution capabilities, but they are not really visible. What can maybe the airline industry learn from the hotels? Because the hotels have this already. They're doing their own thing, create their own interfaces, have their own pricing behind that. So what can the airline industry learn from that?
Yeah, it's a great, I think a great analogy would be, if you think about hotels, hotels have a folio. Everything consumed while at the hotel is on one folio that lists the room, the cost of any room upgrade, Wi-Fi, food and beverage, and a whole host of things. And today, it's very different from the airline industry where you have a PNR and an e-ticket and EMDs, and it's not all connected. So I think, I don't know if it's learned from the lodging industry or really expand and almost replicate. I would say would be one order. And so I think the key difference between hotel folios and one order at an airline is that, so that would bring the seat and any upgrades, any Wi-Fi, bags, ancillary spend would be part of one order. But I think the key difference that is different from hotels, and this is where I think airlines are doing a little bit more, is if you go to make a change and you've paid for an Economy Plus seat, in one order, you don't have to start that process over again. So today, you cancel the seat, you get a refund for the Economy Plus upgrade if you purchased it, and you start that process over. With one order, it carries over the type of seat and what you purchased so that it's part of that overall one order option. And so I would say that's probably the biggest similarity as far as what could learn or really expand upon. But the depth of things that can be done in the distribution space, I think that there's so many things. We're really just, I want to say we're just scratching the surface, but there's been a lot of advancement there.
You were also mentioning about the PNR. Yeah? I mean, this is something really specific from the airline industry. Is this something which will survive in the future? Because when you talk about all these stuff, and when I talk to some tech companies, they say, for what do I need the PNR? At the moment, it is just a matter of there is a process behind and a back office system, mainly on TMC side, but the whole stuff behind is not everything what you need for at least to do the transportation from the passengers from one end to the other.
Yeah, it's a great question and comment. I think this is something that's going to continue to evolve. When I think about the audience, I would imagine there are business travel corporate buyers. There are also agencies, leisure. So I think the way it evolves is going to look different based on the overall audience and who's actually doing the buying. At the end of the day, in the airline industry, and certainly for United, we want to make the process of booking a flight seamless. So whether you're traveling for business or leisure or for a meeting, making sure that that's as easy as possible. I know we'll speak a little bit about NDC, and when you look at Net Promoter Scores for bookings that are made using NDC, they tend to be higher because it is a more seamless process, regardless of whether you're making an NDC booking through a connection with a GDS or through an aggregator. That process is more seamless, and I think, to get to your question, really, it's a process that's going to continue to evolve, but I think it's going to evolve with the different segments of business and along with the technology enhancements that are made along the way.
But coming especially back to this, when I think a little bit further, where do you think, where is all this distribution capabilities, whatever it is in the future, where is it finally heading through? What would be your perfect world, let's say it like this?
So I would answer that by speaking about United's distribution strategy overall, because I think it gives a better context to where we're heading, where we think the industry is heading. So really, we have three tenets. The first is around we're going to make content available and bookable where the traveler wants to buy from us. So again, no matter who that traveler is and for what purpose they're traveling. And so the only limitation to that is going to be the channel they just choose to use, that channel's ability to consume and display that product. And so if you think about the breadth of the types of travelers and where they want to come buy from us that's why I think we've got a little bit of runway before we see a complete change in the way folks are buying. So that's the first tenet. And it's why we are strengthening, again, the abilities that we have in those channels. The second tenet is around aligning economics with the value that channels deliver to us. And so that's really about putting together the right agreements, whether it's with a GDS or an agency or even the overall agreements we do put together with our corporate buyers. All of that gets kind of factored into how we make sure, again, that that content is accessible to them no matter where that traveler or passenger wants to buy from. And the third, because distribution overall encompasses, of course, NDC, is around continued investment in technology that helps to make sure that we're staying ahead of where the industry is heading. So that does mean continued investment in the different features through NDC and other places. It also means fortifying our own channels, right? There's a lot of business that comes to us direct at United.com, again, from different segments of business overall. And so I think the important thing and the distinctive thing with United is we're bringing the voice of the traveler, the corporate buyer, our agency partners into the airline. When we look at our technical roadmap across distribution, which includes NDC, we're getting feedback through advisory councils, both inside the US and outside of the US, on is the priority right? Do we maybe need to, is there something we aren't considering that impacts your business or the way you do business that helps? And so, well, I think it'd be great to have, I wish I had a crystal ball. I would be a very powerful person if I could predict when that was going to happen. But I think understanding the industry and how we look at distribution and then how NDC, and in particular, the technical roadmap plays into that. At the end of the day, we want to be available and easy to do business with, and we want to be where the customer wants to buy.
And this brings me to the next question. So listening to you, for me, it sounds a little bit that the technology is one of the biggest problems you are facing at the moment. Yeah? And now you were talking about a crystal ball. Now, with AI, what do you think, what will be the impact of AI with you internally, but also in channeling your business outside the world? I mean, you were talking about the leisure travelers, the corporate travelers. Of course, we are more interested in the corporate industry. So how do you see what are the biggest challenges, but also what are maybe some opportunities with AI?
Yeah, I think with AI, it starts with responsible AI, understanding where it really can enhance your business, but also understanding where there could be risk. So internally, we're using it actually make our operations more efficient. So an example that would probably resonate with most is we use artificial intelligence to do something that we call every flight has a story. So when there's an irregular operations, you have a team of people trying to determine what happened and what the outcome will be, and then communicate that to the traveler, whether it's on the screens at the gate or using our app to get that message out. And so the feedback we've received is when you're traveling and there's no information, that's actually probably the worst case scenario, because you can't plan, you can't make decisions depending on where you're traveling and when you need to be there. And so using AI and every flight has a story, it has shortened the time frame in getting accurate, simplified information in the hands of the traveler within it's a 30-minute window, whereas it might have taken 2 or 3 hours in the past. And here's the beauty of that. Our CEO actually went to our operations team and said, if I asked you why there was a delay and what we were going to do about it, what would you tell me? And the operations person responded, and he said, that's what I want you to put in this communication. So I use it as a way to illustrate that we're so focused on the traveler experience that even our CEO has input into that overall. But that's one example of how AI will help enhance operations. I think it makes us more efficient. I'm hearing, I mean, if we're all reading the industry trades, we're hearing from some of our, even from our agency partners, the use of AI to make servicing easier and whatnot. So I think across the industry overall, we're all learning. And the one takeaway that I have is, if not using it, we need to start using it and get really comfortable with it every day. And I believe there are impacts and even positions and roles that will exist tomorrow that we haven't even conceived of yet today.
It definitely will be the case. Also, one topic we have not yet talked about, and we are here on a green stage, as well as sustainability. Europe is one of your biggest markets in your whole network, and it's a big topic in Europe, because we have to follow some directions. We have to fulfill all these sustainability reports, where we're obliged to, at least if your company has a size bigger than 250 employees. And of course, traveling by aircraft is always seen critical, but it's part of the job. If you have an international role. You have to be present, you have to fly, you have to use it. I see also that, but it's my personal thing, also connecting people is extremely relevant to bring people together, bring cultures together, maybe these days more than before. So this is a relevant topic, but of course it is a topic for the companies. How is the technology, or what is United doing to also combine maybe the green aspect or sustainability aspect to bring this to the travelers and into the corporation? And what is United doing to reduce the impact?
Yes, it's such a timely and important topic. So just for context, airlines represent about 3% of the greenhouse gas emissions that exist today. So taking swift, impactful action is critical, because if we don't do something about that, then that percentage is going to grow. And so, the airline industry is a hard to abate industry. And so we focus on things like sustainable aviation fuel, because it will make flights 80 to 95% more fuel efficient. There's just not enough sustainable aviation fuel today. So United has a near-term goal. So our near-term goal is to reduce our carbon intensity by 50% by the year 2035, and that's compared to where we were in 2019. And our overall aspiration is by the year 2050 to have net zero greenhouse gas emissions. And there are multiple ways we're doing that. So the first is we're continued to invest in sustainable aviation fuel. For context, in 2023, we purchased over 6 billion gallons of fuel. In 2024, it was 13 billion. And so we're...
But what is the percentage of your total usage?
It's such a great question. But I think you're asking the right question, because the total, even if we purchase 100% of the sustainable aviation fuel that exists today, it's less than 1% of the fuel we need to run our airline. So it's why we're so focused not just on sustainable aviation fuel, but other technologies and companies that can help us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So for example, carbon sequestration is one of those, where you can take carbon out of the air and you can either store it or turn it into renewable fuel. So we're focused on that as well. But we went from 6 billion to 13 billion gallons. And we've gone from one producer to 4. And so, because again, we believe we can't lose focus on that. That will not be the only way that we reach our goals, but it is important to continue the focus. Through the booking path, when you book on United.com, we're the only US airline where we show you the carbon emissions at the time of booking, so that the traveler can make an informed decision based on what's important to them. We also have a way for travelers that say, listen, I want to contribute, right? We work very closely with big corporations who are doing a lot of things. But if an individual traveler wants to make a difference, they can contribute to the United Sustainability Fund, where we invest in things like sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, carbon sequestration, electric trains and planes and taxis, and those kinds of things. And so it is a multi-pronged effort, and one that we are focusing on very seriously.
Thanks also for providing the numbers, and it's true. I mean, it's just 3% currently. I mean, there are also discussions about the clouds which are producing from the engines as well, and might have a negative effect for the atmosphere. But I mean, when we're talking about sustainable aviation fuel, I mean, you just mentioned it. It reduces really the carbon-2 emissions by 80%.
Yes.
So for me, it would be a no-brainer to invest drastically in having more sustainability. So maybe also for the audience here to understand, what is the problem? Why don't we simply produce more?
I think that it's a, again, timely question. It's a matter of getting the operations up and running, bringing a line station on board from beginning to end. I understand takes upwards of 4 or 5 years, but it's also very expensive. And so I think it's you're finding a way to not only, I think investing helps create more sustainable aviation fuel, which creates more availability, and when you match that up against demand, I think that that's the kind of thing that will even out over time. But it just it's not from a lack of interest or desire, it just takes time to get there. And I believe the industry in particular, and also working with our oil and gas partners, are really focused on trying to really speed up that process. I would be remiss not to mention, because of the audience and you're focused on business travel, that we at United have something called the Eco Skies Alliance program, where we actually added 15 new members to that this year. We're in our 5th year where we work with corporations what they do is they buy the SAF premium, and there's a certificate and there's a lot of validity that goes into that, where the corporations then can take that and apply that towards their own goals overall. I would state that one thing that's unique to United is we sell that at cost. We're out with the largest buyer, so it tends to be the lowest cost. But again, this is not a profit-making center for us. We know that the signal of demand in the purchase for SAF is what creates more SAF. And so we and several others, I think, in the community realize that this is where we shouldn't compete, right? This is where we should be working together to stimulate demand and to do our part to create an opportunity to develop more SAF.
Agree, and we could talk for hours for sure. Unfortunately, time is running.
That went really fast.
And we are already at the end. But maybe one final question is, what are the changes which are the most exciting ones for you in the travel industry?
Yeah, so for me, and maybe it's because I've only been in the airline industry for 4 years, but I think the discussion around distribution and NDC and where that's heading, whether it's supported by AI and just the advances that are being made in technology, I think it's incredibly exciting. I think that there are ways we're going to work with each other that we haven't even thought of today. But what I'm especially encouraged by is the collaboration across multiple industries. I think we're having conversations, or my observation is we're having conversations that look very different than they did even 2 years ago. And if we stay focused on bringing the voice of all of the people in the ecosystem to that conversation, I actually think this industry, we're unstoppable. And so I think that's really exciting, and I like being a part of it.
But that's a good final statement. We have more, but this is already red, yeah?
It's because we started early. We're overachievers.
Okay. Oh, no, that's all good. Can you change this color? It makes me totally nervous here. Yeah. But I mean, coming back to this, and I mean, you just mentioned that working together, and you really need to work across boundaries. And I mean, we all have to protect our environment. Yeah. So, isn't it really also in these days crucial more than ever to really work across boundaries, and also if you look on a geographical level, that we need all to collaborate a little bit more together?
I agree. I think, so I was at an industry event in Mexico City 2 weeks ago, and I was speaking to a group of 300 or so industry leaders, and they asked me to just speak in general about collaboration and how we work in particular with corporate buyers and whatnot. And I started by stating, I think, something that really gets to what you're asking, and I said, imagine a world where we all trusted the intent of the partners that we worked with and the geographies that we did business in. You wouldn't have to change your approach to business, you wouldn't have to change your cadence or even your goals, but I think getting business done would be easier. When I think about distribution in general, and I think about just travel in general, and all of the changes that have come since we've gotten out of the pandemic, is that it's change is inevitable, and I think sometimes terms can get used interchangeably, and that showing up at conferences like this, where thought leaders are, and having those conversations, I think goes a long way to breaking down barriers, if there are any, and having great conversations about how do we all win, right? Because I'm really clear that I can't be successful without clients like yourselves or our industry partners and whatnot. And when you start from the perspective of there's something for everyone, I actually think we can do that. Do I think we always get it right? Maybe not. But I do think when we own things and we have great open conversation and we find a way to make our relationships work, I think that we can, anything's possible.
Absolutely, it's always about trial and error, and thanks for changing it to green. Having a look on the product, maybe a little bit. Yeah?
Sure.
I remember some years ago, there was a first class, there was a business class, and there was a coach class. Then the premium economy was introduced later on, and the flatbed arrived in the business class as well. So first class on United disappeared. I mean, I'm not talking about the domestic product, yeah? And I would not say it's first class. I know it's a first class official product, but it's more like the TV chair, yeah, feeling you have. So first class disappears on the long haul flights. Now you have again 3 classes. You have business class, you have a premium ec, and you have economy, and even within economy you have Eco Plus, and then really the tight one. Yeah. So isn't it that we have the same structure a little bit than 20 years ago, just with a different wording?
I'm not sure what you're asking, but I'm going to answer it what I think you're asking is, what we're focused on, of course, is having a very consistent experience. And so when you think about long-haul travel, all of our aircraft have been outfitted with Polaris, right? So that the experience is very similar, the amenities and those kinds of things. What I think is beautiful about what at least United Airlines have done is there is a seat for everyone. It doesn't matter why you're traveling. It doesn't matter what your price point is or what experience you want to have. Our focus is on making sure that we've got options for everyone in the aircraft. I think that the way we treat passengers is very strong. We actually were in the booth hearing about some different experiences that some of the travelers that had gotten here had. Those moments make a difference. They're going to choose us because they know that they're going to have reliability and consistency. And they know that they not only are they going to have a great seat no matter where you are in the aircraft, but because of the way our loyalty works, there's options to upgrade, and we have many ways to do that, whether it's part of the booking path as part of a managed travel program, or we have options where folks can go in if they want to pay on their own. And by the way, there's a lot of technology we're working on to make that easier as part of the single booking process. But I think, at least from a United perspective, the seats we offer and the different kinds of places in the cabin is about there's something for everyone, and there's a price point for everyone.
I mean, this was what we already saw in the past, and this was also my question. Now, there is no official first class, but the business class currently, it is, or Polaris, it is like a first class product. I mean, if you compare this to former times, that's what I would say, this is really premium. And then you have more a little bit the comfortable seat, which is the premium economy. But there are way more, because many years ago, you were just concentrating on flying. If I look on the product on the ground, I mean, also you are investing quite a lot, to make travel way easier for the travelers, independent of the demand or the cost of the trip. You have lounges, and tell us a little bit about all these ground investments and why it is so important to have also this smooth experience on the ground.
Yes, so we have invested, so starting in 2021, think about what was happening in the world at that time, and our board of directors approved us spending, multiple millions of dollars on new aircraft. These are aircraft that, are double-digit percentage more fuel efficient. They have things like, lighting, so you can arrive either refreshed or rested, depending on when you arrive. The technology, a plug for everyone, Bluetooth, so you can connect to the screens. Even things like Braille, for the sight impaired at the aircraft. So the aircraft, in addition to having those seats and all those cabin, it's more forward thinking as far as the experience that the traveler would have. To note, we are the largest airline by available seat miles, but as of last month, we also the largest airline by number of aircraft. We took possession of our 1,000th aircraft. We actually fly to 134 countries. 134 destinations in 67 countries internationally, more than all of our domestic competitors combined. So that's transatlantic and trans-Pacific. The reason I say that is that means that we have to not only invest in the product, but even our lounges, right? And continuing to refurbish our clubs. It's another reason why I joined United. During the pandemic, we invested time and money in upgrading clubs, making them larger, implementing new concepts like we call a club fly, where at first in Denver, which was the prototype, now in Houston, and I think you'll continue to see this grow, where if you don't have a lot of time, you can go in and grab high quality food products and other things before you get on your aircraft. And so there is an entire team that looks at this. They look at food and beverage on the flights. They look at snack options, lounges, aircraft, all of those things. We believe experience matters. And it goes, and I want to circle back to, but it also goes back to experience matters, and now you can find a seat on the plane no matter what your circumstances are, and you can feel good that we're going to take care of you. I wouldn't be in my role if I didn't acknowledge too, we think we have the best people, right? That we try to ensure that our teams are empowered. So flight attendants have a lot of information in the palm of their hands to do recognition. We know when someone has a milestone anniversary, or if it's their birthday, or when the last time they flew was. All of those things are personal touches. At the end of the day, as humans, we want to know that we're appreciated. And so United really is taking steps, whether it's product or the technology, to enable our really critical employees to take care of the passenger, because we think those are the building blocks for long-term loyalty. We have to be humble, and we cannot take the business for granted. And all of those things that we've discussed, I hope, demonstrates that we're not only are we trying to do it, but I think in the industry it's important that we do those things.
I'm fully with you, and maybe this is also a commonality between the hospitality industry and also the airline industry, because for me always it's all about people.
Truly.
If you are on a plane, if you are in a hotel, and you are treated really well and nice, and you felt humbled, yeah? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is something which stays in your mind. Even if the product is maybe lacking in some areas. But if you are treated, humbled, friendly, maybe sometimes just normal, yeah? Mm-hmm. This is something which stays. But if you have a super cool product, yeah, where you say, hey, this is top notch, yeah, but the service isn't what you expect, I mean, all the super stuff you have and all the super product cannot really cover this. Yeah? One question, because we are here in Germany, and this is also something which you hear from different areas. Everybody is talking about that the costs on German airports are the highest for the airline industry. You are running business with many countries. Mm-hmm. If you compare Europe or maybe Germany to the rest of your countries, is that the truth, and is there any recommendation you would have?
I would just say that we have a wonderful relationship with all countries and governments where we do business around the world, and we have ongoing discussions with airport authorities and folks that are responsible for some of the things that might impact those costs overall. I don't think there's any one answer to that, other than, as you would expect, anyone that's doing business at an airline, in an airport, it's ongoing collaboration. And we understand that there's a much bigger picture there. I think one of the great things about ITB and other industry conferences is it's the ability to bring a collective industry voice into those conversations through the different means that not only we as airlines, but all of you, as companies that do business in Germany and other countries have overall. And so I know it's topical, and I know that it's something that all of us are focused on just bringing to the forefront and seeing where the opportunities are.
Didn't cover it fully my question, but I certainly understand this, because this is a big discussion here.
It is.
Everybody said, hey, Germany is an expensive place to operate all these flights, and then they were removing some of the stuff. Therefore, first-hand information is always interesting if it is really so bad. But Germany is, I think, the country where you operate the most daily flights to in Europe.
It's a very, very important country for us.
And do you see currently the economy? Because also here, Germans like to complain. Yeah, we are not good in. We did something great. I mean, that's the difference maybe to the US. Do you see that there is a reduction? Because when I try to find a space on your flights, I just wanted to check flights to Denver with the help of Torsten, which was quite difficult to get one seat. So is it really reflected on your capacity? I don't see that.
Yeah, we're always, so first of all, Germany is an incredibly important market for us. We have a team here that works very closely with not only corporations and corporate buyers, but tour agencies and tour operators and whatnot. We're always looking at our business and demand and working to make sure that we have the right lift. And of course, we have great Atlantic joint venture partners in Lufthansa. And so it is it's ongoing balance to make sure that we have plenty of capacity. But I think more importantly that folks can get to and from Germany, but also points beyond, and that we have the right partners in place that allow for that expanded travel into those marketplaces. I have to say, as a salesperson, I'm happy that we were pretty full, and I'm not happy that you couldn't get your seat that easily. But again, it's something that we're always taking a look at, and I think what we also determine too is how many aircraft do we have, and where can we best utilize that aircraft overall. So it's an interesting way that we approach it overall to make sure that we're where we need to be and can take folks together with our either our joint venture partners or our Star Alliance partners where they need to go.
And also one question, because in the beginning you mentioned that there was a reason, or due to the pandemic, you joined United finally. If you look on the business, how it was before pandemic and what it is now, because we still hear some airlines still complaining that they are not fully back, but I think in your case it's different.
Yeah, so United is, I think, if you think about what we did, right? We didn't force retire planes and pilots. We had the ability to go and grow where we needed to. In fact, when there were a lot of conversations about shortage of people to fly planes, we didn't really experience that. But we're doing incredibly well in that. But we've also increased our capacity, and we're flying to more markets than we ever have. In fact, when I look at where we're growing in 2025, there's more flights to Italy and Rome and Senegal, and there's a whole host of places that we're traveling because the demand is there and travelers want to go to these great markets. So we're continuing to stay focused in a way that doesn't, again, take the business for granted, and using the information that we have to understand where is there demand and a need, and how can we meet that in the best possible way.
Good. So I think now we could talk forever for the different topics we had. Maybe any question to Doreen out of the audience as we're here?
I would say, too, at United, we have a number of folks with us on the technical side that are at our booth all day today. So there may be some of you that have questions about where we're at on our roadmap with technology and with NDC and whatnot. So we welcome you to stop by. I realize as I'm sitting here, I forget the booth number.
Yeah, this is what exactly. Torsten, Marcel, do you know the booth number?
206 in Hall 25.
206 in Hall 25, thank you.
Okay.
And so I know there's several of them here in the room, and so if you do have specific questions, particularly about technology and distribution and whatnot, we have a number of folks here that would be happy to spend time with you as well.
Make sure you say hello to Doreen on her booth. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the time. It was great spending time with you.